everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grew Up. On today's episode, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome my guest, Nicole King. Hey, Nicole, how are you?
I am doing fabulous. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
So I found Nicole through some stalking, really. Like I just no, we have some mutual friends on Instagram, on social media, and I landed upon hers and was so inspired by her feed. Nicole is an artist of sorts, I would say, and she's going to tell me more about what it is that she does and what she loves to do. But yeah, Nicole, how have you been, by the way? Like just through everything, like pandemic, everything, just life in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think along with the rest of the world, the pandemic has been really challenging. It's been a time of reckoning across the globe on so many different levels, right? Like political, racial, whatever it is. During the pandemic is also when I got pregnant. And I had the gift of bearing my first child. My daughter is now 15 months. So while it was really terrible in so many ways, it was also so wonderful. And it was actually kind of like a catalyst. This time was a catalyst for my art career.
Wow.
So that's a very long-winded way of saying I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you're a new mom as well. And so for me, that just speaks volumes to the career that that you said has kind of catapulted in the last year. Also, being a mom is no easy task. So balancing the two, I'm excited to like kind of hear about that part too, like how you balance your life and get things done and make room for the things that you love and also your loved ones at home. But before we get into that, so what is it that you say that you do?
So I think the simple way to put it would be artist, but I like the term visual storyteller. I illustrate, I paint murals, I do original works of art. I do anything that's pretty much two-dimensional. That's like a visual piece. In the last year, I have really kind of shifted my art practice. It's become more in between art and also activism. So there's a really cute term for it. It's called artivism. So I feel like I am an artivist. So yeah, I think it's also still evolving. I don't necessarily think my art practice is just something that's like a final thing. I never feel completely quite satisfied with where I am with my art. It's always just kind of like I'm always figuring out the next step or the next project.
Wow. You said artivist?
Yeah.
Wow. So that's like a real term?
It's just kind of like this lingo that I picked up while I was been working on some projects for some organizations. But yeah, artivism came up and I was like, wow, that sounds a little bit like what I do.
Yeah.
I think that I became an artivist kind of around the Atlanta spa shootings. That's when I feel like my art was a lot more focused in empowerment and elevating some, I would say, underrepresented voices. So yeah, I think that's when the shift happened.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second because, a lot of thoughts come to my mind. For someone that is really, honestly, not versed in the art world, I can appreciate it, honestly. And when I see it, I'm like super amazed and intrigued by it because one, I am like totally artistically challenged in so many ways. but it's just not my gifting, but I can definitely appreciate it. So you called it visual storytelling. But you as an artist, how can you be like a voice in being an activist as well? Like, what do you mean by that? How is that illustrated? Do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah, I
Okay.
totally do. So I think the way I tell my story through art is while I make pieces, artists have a lot of artists are encouraged and often kind of told to talk about their art piece a lot. That's actually been a big challenge for me when I was in college. I was not very good at writing and kind of communicating verbally my like to go along with the art piece. I'm like, I'm an artist, I'm a visual person. Why do I have to write on top of all this? But recently, I think I've just kind of found my voice in that.
Mm.
Um, and just by simply sharing my story and my perspective, I realized that so many people feel so connected to it. Um, my experiences as a woman, as a new mom,
Mm.
as a Korean American, as second generation. I also lost my mother about 10 years ago,
Mm.
dealing with grief and loss. I've been able to reach and touch so many people just through my art and just
Mm.
sharing and talking about it.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, I think it's such a gift when you can communicate an emotion by something that's visual, right? Like, so I mentioned to you before, I studied mass communications and film. And so, like, when I watch something visual and it exudes an emotion out of me that what that gives me the desire to do something, like get up
Mhm.
and do something, it really like is very moving, you know? And I feel like what you're doing and you guys go check out her feed on Instagram. It's really amazing. But what you're doing is like is exactly that, right? So you mentioned the Atlanta spa shooting. That piece that I saw, you know what, guys? I'm just gonna show you right now, just really fast, because it really. Sorry, Nicole. I just really
No,
want
no, no,
people to
go
see it.
ahead. I'm so flattered.
Um, it really is like, I mean, this was a famous photograph, right? That was taken. Or did you go in person to do
Yeah,
it?
actually, so I don't know how long it was, but maybe it was like a few weeks after the shootings happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my baby was only like 3 months old, but my husband and I, we decided to drive there and just, we felt like it was kind of our duty. Like we
Mm,
feel so connected to the city
yeah.
and especially like the Asian American community in Atlanta. We thought it was important that we show up. And when we showed up, I actually, so that picture that you just showed,
Yeah.
it's based on a photograph that I took. So my husband is in the frame carrying my child, but I removed him and I in place another figure. Um,
I just got the
so yeah,
chills.
yeah. I mean, it was jarring being there, right? Like
Mm,
knowing that such a horrible thing happened, but also feeling like kind of empowered and seeing all these people show up, lay flowers, and um, yeah, it was just like a very sacred moment.
yeah.
Um, and the photo, iPhone quality, like it was a great job capturing it, but I wanted to kind of channel that feeling, that same feeling of me being there. Um, so my style of art is just, I feel like I draw and I paint really quickly. So it's kind of like,
Okay.
I feel like my art is just kind of supposed to give you like a real um, strong emotion really quickly. In the
Mm.
same way, I feel those emotions very deeply, but also really quickly. Like I process things very quickly. So that's what I was trying to convey with that illustration, and that was a part of series that I did for Asian Americans Advancing Justice Atlanta. They hired me to do 3 illustrations for the anniversary of the spa shootings.
Oh wow, that's amazing. And yeah, I think you're right. Like, you know, it's there I don't have to like look at it and try to interpret it. You know what I'm saying? But I can really appreciate for what it is that you have illustrated. And I thought it was cool that Jeremy Lin posted your picture.
Oh my gosh, I woke up and I was like, wait, why is there a check mark in my feed or like my
Yeah,
notification? And I'm
yeah.
like, Jalen, no way. And then
Yeah.
I went and I was like, oh my God, it's Jeremy Lin.
Like
Yeah, I was geeking out. I was
me
definitely geeking
too. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so crazy. Like, oh, because I know Nicole's younger sisters, and I just thought it was cool that I kind of knew you.
out. Listen, you know me now. Like, it's all
Yeah.
good.
But
We're a whole
yeah.
family.
But yeah, that was really cool. I just a side note. But um so this is kind of I feel like I'm asking questions all over the place as we
That's okay.
talk.
That's how I
Um
talk. It's fine.
but you had mentioned that someone what was the organization? Atlanta.
So it's AAAJC. So Asian Americans Advancing Justice
Oh,
Atlanta.
I'm sorry, Asian American Advancing Justice Atlanta. You
Uh-huh.
said that they hired you to do this. So like commissions like that, do they come up often for you, or how does that even work?
So I will say my most of my commission work in the past have been for pet portraits. So I just did something really fun for myself a few years ago. Like I
Uh-huh.
had just adopted a dog and he was like the most precious thing to me. So I drew a picture of him on like a small wooden plaque. And then I like put it on Instagram. I was like, who likes these? Who wants these? And then for years, like I think at this point I've done over 70. And
What?
so I had to retire because it was burning me out because the demand was so high. And I'm just like, I'm only one person and I have a full time job too. So it was just hard to manage that. And it wasn't just bringing me joy after like a few years. I mean, it was wonderful for like a long time seeing people get so excited about their pet portraits. But then like I started wanting to make art for myself. And
Mm.
so, um, that kind of commission work died out, like the portrait work, like family portraits and stuff. And so I said I closed it. Like I'm not doing that anymore. Um, and it was hard to make that decision because I had such a huge following based on that. Um, but I just felt it was so important for my personal growth to focus on art that I needed to explore.
Sure.
And it was, again, sharing my story. Like, I think it is so important to share my experiences. It's not completely unique. Like, I feel like other people just needed to know that, like, my story is a lot like theirs. And so once I started shifting focus, it actually really started with another organization called Asian American Advocacy Fund.
Okay.
Um, they hired me because they selected me along with a huge number of Asian American artists in Atlanta
Mm-hmm.
to put together a coloring book. So it's going to be released soon.
I
And so
heard
I'll
about
share more.
this.
Yes. And so they said, we're going to pick, like, for every alphabet, we're going to highlight one important Asian American. And I saw Michelle Kwan and I was like, I want that one. And then I saw Vera Wang and I was like, I want that one. So I illustrated two portraits and they will be part of a coloring book and it features some amazing artists. So it's based on that experience and that whoever managed it, her name is KV Vu. So
Uh-huh.
she works on a lot of these creative projects around town.
Yeah, yeah.
She recommended me for this illustration project for spa shootings. So like it's networking. It's also like
Mm.
having good relationships, being good communicator, being prompt, being collaborative. I feel like that got me this opportunity to illustrate the spa shooting.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. Yeah, I heard about the coloring book too.
Yeah.
And I saw today someone posted that the coloring book's gonna something is gonna be incorporated on the Atlanta Beltline or something like that.
Yes. Yes. So
What
our
does that
works
even
will be
mean? Like it's gonna
so
be up there?
so along the belt line, I think there are some fencing areas.
Yes.
They're going to, I think, print it out in large scale, so you'll be able to see it in full color.
Oh my gosh. I am
Yeah,
so
so I'm so
excited.
excited. But this is what I'm saying is like it's been a timely thing for me. Like I've always been
Mm,
making art. I think I'm making timely pieces and then the people who are seeing my art is just kind of spreading word
yeah.
and the projects that I've worked on are getting bigger and bigger. So I'm really really grateful to be selected as one of the artists for this coloring book because it's gotten me other gigs.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to go back to maybe the beginning, in college and even before that, maybe high school. Is art, I'm assuming art is maybe something you've always kind of enjoyed, but yeah, what were some of the steps that you took for your future in college and your studies and stuff?
Yeah, so I think I have kind of a special story because my mom was very supportive of my artistic endeavors. I think
Mm,
some of my friends just didn't have that kind of support within their home.
sure.
So I feel very lucky. My mom was always like egging me on. And so in high school, I got accepted to Governor's Honors Program, and I attended that, summer camp for nerds, and I loved every minute of it because
Oh,
it really
wow.
pushed my boundaries and my creativity. And some of the friends that I've made there are like showing at major museums in like New York City. So
Oh, wow.
it's just it's opened up my world. Art has been such a huge tool for me also, like throughout high school. This is just like going back way into my history, but I have lived in more than 20 homes and I've been to more than 20 schools.
Oh,
And so for
wow.
me, sometimes being the only Asian was a really scary thing.
Mm,
But to be able to say, hey, yeah, I'm Asian, but like, did you check out how good I am at this? It was kind of like my superpower, and it
mm,
shielded me um, from any kind of, I feel like, awkwardness. It was just kind of the thing I clung to. It was like a big part of my identity growing up. So when
mm.
I went to college, I knew that I wanted to study art, but my college plans didn't go as planned because my mother was diagnosed with an aggressive form of leukemia when I was in high school.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, and I'm the oldest of four. So I just felt like it would be so selfish for me to be like, well, I got accepted at a big fancy art school. I'm just leaving, which I
Mm,
think, no one would have blamed me if I did that, but I felt a lot of guilt.
sure.
So I took a year off after high school, just kind of taking care of my mom, being at home, being with my family. And then I decided to go to a nearby school. So I got accepted to Oglethorpe University, which is that Harry Potter looking building in Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was a great experience. I didn't expect to enjoy my liberal arts education. All of my Korean friends were going to Tech or State or UGA, and I
Sure.
was like the only Korean at Oglethorpe. And it actually turned out really great. Like I was involved in like student leadership positions, but then the third year of my college kind of like everything fell apart. So
Mm,
my boyfriend at the time died the same year that my mom died. So like I went through like a lot of trauma that year. And so I had a difficult time finishing up school, but because I was in a small school and everyone knew me well, the administration really like tried to get me to graduate. So I did. I took an extra semester, but it happened.
oh my
So
gosh,
like, yeah, my
Nicole.
personal circumstances, like I have to like bring it up because it's a big part of who I am.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me after college because I had to deal with the loss of my mom,
Yeah.
and my dad had to lean on me for a lot of support and care for my young sisters. And I felt very resentful, like in that position. I was 23, 22, and I was like, everyone's getting these fancy internships, externships, entry level jobs. And like, I felt very left behind. And so, um, when I kind of think about that time, it's just crazy where I am now.
I am so shocked right now.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot for
it
a
is a
third year
lot.
in
And
college. I can't
I'm
even
happy to talk about
imagine.
it. Yeah, it was a lot.
So, I can I ask you questions about this? Are you
Absolutely.
okay? I just
Yeah.
feel like, there could be somebody listening that maybe is going through a lot too. And I'm I yeah, okay, so your mom passed away. So she battled for what? Like a 3, 4 years?
So I think about 5 years.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. And so, after she passed away, I mean, were you prepared or was it still a lot?
Yeah. I mean, it was 5 years that we got to enjoy with her. I still
Mm-hmm.
think it was it was completely devastating. It tore our family apart. Like
Sure.
not literally apart, but it just messed us up,
Of
like
course.
everybody.
Yeah.
Because she was the person who held us all together, and
Yeah.
she's the one who kind of centered and grounded all of us. And yeah, it just shifted the entire family dynamic, and to kind of navigate life without her leading the way was very scary. So I feel like I'm not normally actually a person to step up and be brave and take charge and take risks. But because of the things that have happened in my life, I faced my biggest fears. I think I've become very resilient.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that to like show off or anything. I just
No.
think that's just who I am.
Yeah.
And so when I am labeling myself as an artist, it's because I know about human resilience from a first, like from my own
Yeah.
experiences. And so it's so important to know that like I want my art to exist so that I can comfort and encourage those who need it.
Oh, I love that so much. So good. No, because and from what you had mentioned earlier too, that your mom was your biggest cheerleader, right? And in being an artist, and I think about students now that love art and are good at it, but aren't necessarily encouraged, right, to make this their life career because of fear of failure or not being successful, not having enough money. And we all know our parents want what's best for us. And I think you and I now also know as a mom, right? Like they always just want what's best. And because that's what I want for my children. I'm sure you want
Mm-hmm.
that for your daughter. And but at the same time, like there is this resentment that comes with it. And I just feel like it would have been so devastating, like you had said, to have lost your biggest cheerleader in the moment where you're just about to graduate. And oh man, Nicole, I'm so sorry for your loss, but
No, thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
So actually after she died, I stopped making art for 5 years. It was just like really devastating for me. So I could not pick up a single thing. However,
Oh man.
it was still so deep inside me. Like
Yeah.
the artist in me still craved it, but I like physically couldn't get myself to do it. So what I would do instead during that time is go see other people's art because I could do that. I could manage it, I could enjoy it. And all that time for me, it was still research. Like it's not mindless. I mean, it is socialization, it is
Sure.
networking, but also it was research. And so when I was able to actually start making art again is after I met my husband.
Oh my god. No, sorry. I
I'm being
think
so serious though. I'm
I
not trying to be cheesy, but it's just I felt very healed in so many
No,
ways.
I know you're not trying to be cheesy. I'm just processing everything with you right now, and I'm just like so floored. Like because it all that makes sense to me, right? Like it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense, but also the hardship that was endured during these 5 years of maybe I mean now I'm sure you could look at it as growth, right? But when you're in it, it's like heartache. It's complete
Oh yeah,
brokenness.
totally. I mean, I felt very lost in that sense. Um, I kind of had the same feeling after having the baby too, right? Because your
Yes.
identity is like kind of it's not necessarily gone, but it's not like a priority. Like who you
Right.
are is not a
Right.
priority, right? And so, yeah, just kind of going back to it, I think losing that person
Mm,
for me, like my identity as and my self-worth as a person was really grounded by my mother.
mm,
And then to not have that, I was just like, this is just so meaningless. I don't want to
yeah,
do this.
yeah.
And it was more focused on, I was at that point more focused on survival and kind of practicality.
Mm.
I'm not a practical person. I'll just tell you that. I'm a very emotional, artistic, expressive person.
Mm,
But I also think I don't regret not making art. Like I had to go through what I had to go
yeah,
through to
yeah,
be pumping out art now the way I do.
yeah.
But
That's
yeah, I met
amazing.
my husband about a few years after she passed away. But I felt like, he became my person and he's been like my number one cheerleader. Like he's out there when I'm making murals. He's like getting drinks for everybody. He's packing all my supplies. He's doing all of those things. And
So
so I just feel
amazing.
like having that backbone and somebody to kind of champion you, it certainly changes everything. So I was able to pick up a pencil and draw again. And the first thing I drew, without me even actually realizing I did this, was a picture that my friend took on a mission trip of a mom holding her child. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a poetic connection. I didn't realize that's what would draw me back, but it did.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, it was
I
really
keep
cool.
getting the chills every time you say something. Wow, that's really awesome. Um, okay, I'm just asking this because I'm really curious. So how did your boyfriend pass away?
Oh my gosh. So he and I were friends since freshman year, and
Uh-huh.
he's one of the best people I've ever met.
Uh-huh.
Just the kindest person. So he was on a winter, what do you call it? Like a winter trip with the
Sure.
school. It was like a school trip over winter break.
Okay.
And he was in Costa Rica, and it was kind of like a science research trip. And it was one of the off days. So a group of students just went swimming, and he got caught in a riptide.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So if I'm being very honest, like my early 20s, because I went through so much severe like emotional
Trauma?
trauma, like my memory is really bad. Like it's very spotty, like in that area. Like I can't remember a lot of
I
stuff
mean, I don't
during that
blame
time.
you. I don't.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
But he was also so supportive of my art too. Like
Yeah,
I just,
yeah.
yeah.
That's some. Oh man, I'm so sorry. That's terrible.
It is
Um,
terrible. It is terrible. But I also know that like, I just believe that they're in a much better place.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
I believe that too. Okay, going back to your art, but I'm sorry, I just was so curious. I had
You
to
can
ask
ask
you.
me anything.
Um,
I'm a very open book.
thank you. And if there's ever anything that you don't want to talk about, just say pass, and I'm good.
Okay.
But well, yes. So you started. You stopped for about 5 years. You said. So when did you graduate? Sorry, I don't remember what you
Yeah.
said.
So I graduated. I took an extra semester,
Uh huh.
and I was a commuter student that like fifth year.
I see.
And then I graduated, and then I just started working part-time jobs. Like
Okay.
just I couldn't like land.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know where to go. Like I had a degree in studio art,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just felt like I was kind of missing that momentum that
I
everybody
see.
had kind of ridden, their senior year. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just like not in a place to be far away from home or, yeah. So I worked some part-time jobs, but I
Mm-hmm.
also was like, okay, I need to still be close to art. So I worked at Johns Creek Art Center
Okay.
doing like just administrative work for a few months.
Oh wow. Okay. And then, but all this time you weren't picking up any drawing stuff or
No, no.
painting. Okay. And so after you drew that first picture when you're like kind of okay, like you did it like you was it like I'm going to do this today, or you just kind of saw this picture and started drawing, or
Yeah, I was just like, okay, this picture is just like this photo is so lovely. Like I think I can draw it. And it's
mm,
just there wasn't so much thought behind it, and it was very intuitive, and it felt very easy going back
mm,
to it. And then after that, I just did a whole series of portraits of women. And
wow.
what happened was, this is another like wild story.
Okay.
So I was like, you know what? I have a bunch of pictures. Like I want to I want to share it with friends and family.
Uh-huh.
And so I knew of this guy who was just holding these art parties in Cabbage Town
Okay.
out of his house. And so what he would do is like one day out of the month, he would ask an artist to just like take over his house, like his first floor, and just like put up all their art. And then he would invite a bunch of people over, and it would just be a party.
What? That's so
And so I was
cool.
like, it was so cool. So I was like, okay, I feel like I have a good chance. He's not a gallery or a museum. Like I have a good body of work. It's not a huge space to fill up. So I asked him, and he was like, sure, super low, like super laid back. And so I filled up his whole house with portraits of women, women of color in different stages of life, some women that I know very personally. And then and then my husband proposed to me that night.
Oh my gosh! Are you
It was
serious?
crazy. I was so stressed out that
Oh
night. And
my
I was actually like, don't talk to me. Like to everybody. I was like, my art is like, this is the first time I'm showing my art in forever.
right.
Like, I don't know what anyone's going to think.
Like so
Like,
vulnerable
I
after
felt
all these
very
years.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, he proposed to me. And it was so cool because I love the show Stranger Things on Netflix.
Okay.
And some of the cast members were there
What?
because they're like friends with the guy who
Right.
lives
And
there.
they're filming in Atlanta.
Yeah, that was like too much for me that night. Like every picture of me, like my eyes are super puffy from crying. Like I took a picture with the cast. I was like, thank you for coming. But yeah, it was one of the most memorable nights of my life.
That is insane.
Yeah, it's a really fun story. It was Charlie, Natalie, and Jonathan. It's
Okay, I
like
don't
the
know
older
their names,
teens.
but I know
Yeah.
the people.
Yeah. If you watch Stranger Things, you know who I'm talking about.
Yes, yes. Man, that is so cool
It
and
was
so
super cool.
crazy. That is an insane story.
I know. But ever since then, I think my art's kind of, I've always had a full-time job. So back then I was working at Alliance Theater in their education department.
hmm
And then currently I'm working at Oglethorpe University in career development, but I'm still managing a whole art career on top of it.
Yeah.
So I was the pet portraits was kind of a thing to keep me like in practice. Because
Yes,
if I didn't
yes.
have something, like if somebody wasn't checking in on me or something, like it was a structure, like a loose structure that I created for myself. And then once that really took off, I was like, okay, I just need to change it up.
Yeah, yeah. So, after your showing in Cabbagetown, like, did anything come from that? I mean, other than a marriage and a wonderful life, but but like, did any like did
Not
anyone say
actual like
anything to you that night that you were like, yeah, like I need to continue to do this or anything like
Yeah, so
that?
the fun thing that happened was that I got to sell a lot of my pieces that night.
Wow.
And I sold, I think, almost every piece that night, which was, it was very like, I made it very affordable. They were smaller pieces. Don't get too impressed. But um, that was definitely a huge motivator for me to be like, okay, I think I can keep doing this.
Yeah.
It's not just like a hobby, it's still who I am. Like, I read this thing on like Instagram, like just because you're not making art at the moment, it doesn't mean you're not an artist.
Mm,
So I feel that
mm.
like yeah, in my soul for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was definitely something that affirmed and validated my identity as an artist. And I think from then it's been kind of a steady path of creating and building a body of work that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, the pandemic hit and then I had a lot of free time. I was furloughed for a few months. And I just cranked out like a ton of artwork during that time.
So what is your favorite kind of like art to draw, like or to paint? I'm sorry for my terminology. I don't know.
You're doing great. I love painting. So I love especially painting on wood. Um, I'm not very good at following rules. So oil painting is just always like been really, oil painting is very process driven.
Okay.
You have to be very patient. You have to
Mm.
wait for the paint to dry for
Oh.
days.
Oh, that's terrible.
And you have to clean your brushes or they get all messed up. And
Ah.
I'm a very like, I'm a hot-headed person. I feel like I go very fast with things. So water-based paint on wood is my jam. That's my favorite.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, um, do you prefer like I think you prefer people, right? Like
Yeah,
from what
so
I
I
can
love doing
tell.
portrait work.
Okay.
Um, but I also abstract work is pretty hard, honestly, for me.
Mm.
I have some friends who are amazing abstract artists, and I don't think I could ever get at their level, but I think portrait work is probably my thing, and especially portraits of my mother. I've done a
Mm.
lot of portraits of her.
Wow, that's what a gift to have. Like you just now you said I don't ever think I could get on their level, like the abstract artist. But what does that mean? So, like, does that mean you as an artist, even though you have a particular style, like, you could get better at this thing? Do you get it?
Absolutely. Oh my
Okay.
gosh. I still think for me, sometimes I will surprise myself. I'll be like, okay, I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
I did that. Like, sometimes it happens like completely accidentally. Like, I'll be like, "Ugh," like my brush will tilt just a little bit, and I think I smudged something, and I look at it, I'm like, that's the perfect shadow I needed. And
Mm,
it's very, a lot of, I feel like my art can be a good coincidence. Like, sometimes
mm.
with abstract art, there's not like a point where you're like, okay, it's supposed to look like something, right?
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
it's just, it's abstract. It doesn't really
Yes.
look like anything in particular. And so there are artists who are very intuitive and just know when to stop. And I'm somebody, I feel like I will overwork to
I
look for an
see.
end point. I have done some abstract pieces that I'm very proud of, but it's not as natural for me as it is for other people.
Mm.
I think me kind of noticing, yeah, I think portraits are probably my strength.
So when you start a portrait from start to, I mean, I would assume it depends on how big it is, but like from start to
Mhm.
finish, how long does that process take you?
Um, sometimes actually small pieces do take a lot of time.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I'm a very fast painter.
Oh,
So as an artist, I don't benefit if I charge somebody an hourly rate because I would
okay.
be done with something and I would be out of money.
Hmm.
So for me, it's just kind of like I charge my clients based on my expertise, my materials, um, and the conceptualizing is probably like the hardest thing. But like a pet portrait on a good day could take me like an hour or two.
Oh,
And
that seems
then
fast.
it's very it's very fast.
Okay, okay.
It's pretty fast, I would say. It's not the fastest, but I think it's
Yeah.
pretty fast. A big painting I did. I was commissioned by a client to do a portrait of her grandmother,
Hmm.
and the painting was like 3 feet by 4 feet.
Hmm.
But I think I finished it in about 3 days total.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And do you
So,
need like absolute focus or how does that work for you?
oh my gosh, it is a process. I am such a distracted person. But when I'm in my zone, I'm like, I crank it out. So like
Mm,
I I have like a time that I set where I just like need to center myself and like get myself focused. So I will
okay.
like chip away at my paint palette, like all the dry paint. I'll turn on Netflix and watch a few episodes to like, it just depends. I don't think there's a real magic process or anything
But
like,
there
but
is a
when I
process in place.
maybe, but once I get working, I get
I
working.
see. Okay.
But sometimes it's for me getting to the work part is like it takes me forever. So I don't know why.
Oh, yeah, I think that's most of us, so in
You
everything.
think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so like you said you have a full-time job as well, right?
I do.
So then what does a typical day look like for you, Nicole?
So I would say my pandemic self
Uh-huh.
is it like it's kind of loosened up those areas, right? Like
Okay,
it's
okay.
not like um so I work hybrid. I work a few days from home and a few days at the office, which is at Oglethorpe University. So for the days that I do work at home, if I am slow with emails, if it's a slow day with just a lot of work,
Hmm.
I will dedicate time to painting. So I'll just kind of split my time that way.
Okay.
And it's actually really good for my brain. Like, honestly, it keeps me very alert and engaged. Um, but yeah, I just spend a lot of time with my dog and my art. I would say half of the week. And then the other half of the week, I am at the office. And I like that because I like seeing people. I'm a very social person. So it really helps me to like not always be at home by myself
Yeah,
or just
yeah.
at the studio.
That's good. Yeah. I think balance is really key in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people's lives. I want to ask, and I don't, yeah, I'm sorry if it's like really forward, but um I'm curious to like, so say someone wants to be an artist and they're
Hmm.
like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Listening to you, Nicole, like that's exactly what I want to do. Um, I mean, is it possible to just do that without supplementing with another job, like survival wise?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Um, so I think, I want to maybe down the line get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is also being able to provide for a family.
Sure.
It's not that we're financially strapped or anything. Um, but I have friends who are full-time artists. So we actually um, really encourage each other. We share information because I think choosing an artist life, there's not a set path really. So
Mm,
you get what you put into it.
sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and so if I invested all of my time um, marketing myself, branding myself, creating works, I do feel like I could ultimately get to that point. I'm not quite ready to make that huge jump to become a full-time artist. I think
Mm,
I'm quite close.
mm.
And it is my long-term goal.
Okay.
Long-term as in just like a few years down the line. I think it's
Wow.
getting closer.
Yeah.
But I have friends who have just really taken the leap of faith and are providing for a family just based on their artist income. The thing to kind of consider is creating art. Certain types of art is labor, and so you are wearing out your body. So make sure to just consider that. I have friends who have health issues because they just overwork their arms because they've been painting so much.
I've never
Um,
thought of this.
yeah. It's a physical thing, right? So for me, I've made myself a little bit of a comfort area, right? Like I have
Mm,
um, different levels of kind
mm.
of the physical demands in my art. A mural is definitely by far the most demanding. You
Sure.
are on
Yeah.
a ladder, you're balancing, you're carrying heavy tools, you're covering bigger surfaces. And then painting's kind of in between that. And my illustrator self, I just work off of an iPad. And
Mm,
so I have a range and I have some options. So I think it's important to just consider that if you're an artist. Um, if you're going to be a full-time artist, you have to be tenacious and you have to be unafraid of rejection and you have to just be able to bulldoze through all of that. And it
yeah.
is super hard to do that as an artist when you're sensitive creatures like myself. But after a few rejections, nothing really like stings anymore and you just
Mm,
keep applying. But the thing about being an artist and being able to survive on an art income is just you have to have a lot of drive, a lot of self motivation. So it's not as easy as it looks. You have to update your own website. You have to be the person that talks to clients when they say, come take a look at my house or whatever. Um, you have to chauffeur around your own art. You have to
mm.
ship materials. You have to know the ins and outs of a whole business.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot. And but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it makes sense, obviously. If anything you're going to be good at is to put a little bit of work into it. And I
Right.
think, especially nowadays, and I've said this on previous episodes, but like the way life is right now, right, with social media and just internet and whatever, I think the grass looks always just greener right on the
Mm-hmm.
other side. You just
Mm-hmm.
it looks easy. It seems like you're doing it. Yeah, I can look at your feet. I'm like, man, yeah, Nicole's just knocking it out and she's so awesome and she makes it look so easy. But um definitely the work has been put in, the years have been put in, and
Yeah.
um, when it comes to your story, it's like you have been through it in order to be where you are today, which is so amazing to witness. And I'm so
I
grateful that.
appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I had mentioned at the very beginning of our chat that I wanted to ask you about what it's like to balance like being a mom and having a full-time job and being an artist. And yeah, could you speak on that just a little bit for me?
First of all, I'm very tired.
Yeah. Yes, that's across the
But
board, all moms.
like on a deep level, like being able to preserve and work at my art
Mm,
um, makes me a better mom. It
yeah.
makes me a better wife. It makes me a better person because I know who I am. I think a lot of moms struggle with that. It's unbelievably hard, right? You are physically changed, you are hormonally changed, like everything in your world has been changed, but it doesn't necessarily affect anybody else, like to the
Right.
level that you have been affected, right?
Right.
It was very isolating. And I honestly, after giving birth, like I really miss my mom. Like I was like, oh
Of
man, I wish she was
course.
here. She could give me some wisdom. We have to like figure these things out. We're responsible for a whole life. Um, so one of the things that my husband noticed was that like I wasn't given like a creative outlet, like while I was recovering and taking care of a newborn. So he actually is the one who introduced the idea of digital illustration, and like the works that have just kind of taken off is my digital illustration. So
Wow.
he was like, you can just work from your bed. Like, again, he's somebody who's been very supportive and encouraging. And he kind of gave me that push to do it. And I just picked up on it.
Mm.
And so what I do is I stay up a little bit later to do the art that I want to do. You just stretch your hours a little bit and you just get a little bit more done than you used to before a baby. But yeah, I don't know if I'll ever feel like completely balanced, because I feel like in certain ways, like, yeah, I've fulfilled my art self, I'm taking care of my baby, but I haven't had alone time with my husband. So something kind of takes the hit.
Sure.
And my dog is like super depressed. Like, he's like, everyone's forgotten about me. He's always so sad. We're working on that.
Yeah, no, at our house too. I before my kids, so my husband bought my dog for me, like as a gift, but when we were dating.
So
And
sweet.
now she's like cold rice, like chanbap, like for
Yes.
real. And
He is, yeah, he's been
thankfully,
Chamba.
my youngest, my 3-year-old, my daughter, she loves animals, so like she adores Lola, my dog, but
Mhm.
I'm like, it's like another 15 minutes I have to put into my schedule for like sending people off to school, making food and everything. It's just, anyways, it's a whole nother story. But yes, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, so I think like I just kind of rotate those things.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I will always have to be a mom, like I can't not do that part, but like, some days I'll pour a lot of myself into my art, and that means sometimes the house is a little messy. And other days I won't be able to make some art, and I can just do some stuff around the house. And so I think right now I'm just kind of learning how to prioritize those
Hmm.
things. And it gives me a good reason to also tell my clients my time matters a lot more than it used to. Like it's got more value now. So you do have to pay more because I'm having to carve out my life to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think honestly, it's helped me to see how to set boundaries in certain areas.
Hmm.
Um, and then just be good. We have to, as moms, be good at like letting go, right?
Yes,
Like of
yes.
what we want or what we expected.
Pick and
And
choose your
so
battles for sure. Yes.
totally, like it's just kind of like a exercise and like, yeah, it's just a constant exercise in letting go. So still working on it, haven't perfected it, but at least to people who are asking me for art, I've been able to put my foot down and say, you just need to pay me more.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
And they don't even
Um,
flinch. They're like, oh, you're right.
yeah. That's so funny. Um, well, we're kind of coming to a close on our time together, and I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know that it's valuable. Trust me.
No, this is great. I want to be here. Don't worry.
No, no, I super grateful and super honored, Nicole, truly. But I always ask people before we close our time together, do you have any advice? I feel like you've given a lot of good pieces of advice throughout, but yeah, maybe one last piece of for somebody that's wanting to be an artist, or aspires to be, or any just like advice at all.
Yeah. I really like, so for a long time, the Bible verse, I don't even know where it comes from anymore, but um, that resonated with me so deeply. was, when I am weak, then I am strong.
Mm.
I was like, that doesn't make sense, like in a logical way. But when you have been through battles, obstacles, failures, um, those are the moments when you want to give up and give in and say, just throw in the towel and say, like, I don't want to do this anymore. That's the best time to step up. I think, I truly believe that. And I'm a huge, yeah, I just believe that, like, you and I, everybody who's listening in, have that deep inner strength, like deep in us. And so I think when we go through these difficult things, it's going to awaken that sense. So I would say just lean into that. Your failure is not the end. It's just a part of the process, and it's just sharpening who you are. And so for me, I think, remember to fail forward, right? Like, just keep pushing forward. And if you have a goal, just, you will get there. Like, it's not a straight path. It's narrow and windy, and sometimes it leads you even backwards. But I think you just need to trust your struggle.
Man, really, really good stuff to share. As you're talking, I'm like, so true, right? Like, failure, and you're not the first person to say that on the podcast, honestly. Like, failure needs to happen in order for you to move forward, like you mentioned. But even now, as you're saying it, even if it's not the first time I've heard it, it's like such a vulnerable and scary place to be, you know? Like,
Totally.
admitting that you're not good at it or you failed at it and you have to pick up the pieces to move forward. You really have to be brave, honestly. And I think, man, your story, truly, Nicole, like, it is a picture of what that really looks like, and how when you overcome, and but not even just like immediately, right? Like, you took the time to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and do it well, is how you can be restored and continue forward. Um, that's what I really love, that it was okay for you to take that time.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think for me as a person, I'm just always in a hurry, and I'm like, no, I need to be quick in my healing. I need to do this fast, and fast doesn't always mean like good or right, or that's what you should be doing. And so,
Yeah. And I think there is a way to struggle even gracefully, and not necessarily falling completely victim to, um, when you feel like you are failing, there are a lot of lies that can enter in your mind, and there's a lot of things out there telling you that you're not doing well.
yeah.
But despite what's happening outside, like, you just need to know your inner strength and your identity and your roots.
Yes.
For me, a lot of the things that did help me was my spirituality, and also that one or two people in your life who are just like relentlessly supportive of you no matter what. And so having good people around too, I would say, is a major thing in your
Yeah.
life and how it shapes your future.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
So I want Vera, my daughter, to
yeah.
always have good friends. I'm always going to be looking at
Yes.
who's
Yeah.
near her.
So hard when you have kids. It's like, how do we do
I
this?
know.
Like, protect them
They're gonna mess up, they're gonna fail, but
Yeah.
I just, again, like, I want, if they're gonna fail, I want them to do a good job at failing too.
Yes. Oh, so good. So good. That's harder for me, but I know that I have to do that. I'm like such a perfectionist, like, yeah, it's hard for me. But
Yeah, I'm like, I've given up on perfect a long time ago.
yes, I
I
need to
just,
be
because it's
there.
like, I am so I'm like so messy, and like, I'm a rule breaker. Like, my husband is a very, like, he's a rule follower. He does everything like the right way, and I do everything backwards. And then he has to redo it. Like, like, I build things like completely wrong, and then he gets so mad.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I love it. But the perfect team, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's a good balance,
Yeah,
I think.
sounds good. That's really good. Well, again, Nicole, I am so appreciative of you and your story. And I feel like we just like kind of hit the surface. But if there is anybody that listens to this episode today that is like, man, I really want to connect with Nicole, would you be open to me
Yeah,
introducing to them?
absolutely. I think the best way to connect is through social media.
Okay.
I'm pretty active on Instagram. So it's just my name, Nicole Kang, and then my husband's last name on. But yeah, let's connect on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. Well, guys, if you have any questions for Nicole or me, or you just want to reach out, you can, like she said, you can connect with us on social media, or you can email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com. Thanks again. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks, Nicole. Until next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.